Hey guys, it's Zumpr here, here with my very first review, Pilotwings 64. Right before I started the review, I just wanted to give you guys a quick few details in case, I'm just gonna stroke my face, in case you haven't seen a review before, here's the way the reviews will work. So my reviews are based on a 5-point system, like, for example, if I have a music, and I have a music section. I'll give my music section, once I'm done reviewing it, I'll give it a score out of 5. Like, it could be a 4 out of 5, or a 2 out of 5, or whatever. Or, it could be like fractions, like 4.5. But, it'll never be like a 4.13947 or something. I mean, there may be the occasional pi, but that may be just because I'm trolling. Since my reviews are based on a 5-point system, I have 5 sections of critiquing. These 5 sections, to some people's disagreement, are story, gameplay and controls, music, selection and unlockables, and multiplayer. Now that last one, always, like, people are like, oh, multiplayer, you know, that's great. Like, Legend of Zelda doesn't have multiplayer. Does that mean it's gonna get a 0? No, I don't think Zelda's gonna get like a 0 or anything on that, but I don't know. It kind of has to see, because I just multiplayer. I feel like that the N64, it's the first console to ever introduce 4 controller slots. So really, it should have 4-player multiplayer. And if it doesn't even have 2-player multiplayer, I find that to be a problem in games, which is why I feel like my review system is a little bit different. Like, Legend of Zelda may get like a 1 out of 5 on, or a 0 out of 5 on multiplayer, because it doesn't have multiplayer. Now, the point of the game isn't multiplayer. I know that, but that's just the way I'm gonna rate it. So, you know, suck it up, punk. Anyway, finally, at the end of every episode, I will usually have like a top 5 or top 10 list of games over their overall ranking. Like, based on how I've ranked them, we'll see how they're ranked overall. Like, I could have, for example, after this one, it's going to be like in the number 1 slot is going to be Pilotwings. So, because there's nothing else. But after, like, I play through 5 or 10 games, you'll see that it'll change and stuff. And so, by the end, probably like a year, by the end, probably like a year or something, you guys, we'll see where all the games are at. So, yeah, see you guys in the review. Bye! Pilotwings 64. What a game! Developed by Paradigm Simulation as a flight class simulator in 1994 and released in America on September 29th, 1996 as one of the Nintendo 64's release titles. While I don't think this is a hidden gem on the N64, it definitely wasn't the biggest hit in my opinion. This title had to be the only rival to what was probably the most hyped Mario game to ever come out on a Nintendo system. Even though it was one of the 2 release titles on the N64, you would still think it would be slightly interesting to a 90s audience, right? Nope, because big hits like Wave Race 64 and Star Wars Shadows of the Empire were soon to come out. After playing through the game myself, I don't think it's the best game on the N64, but as a release title, it definitely showed off what the N64 could do. While Pilotwings 64 doesn't really have a story, the closest thing to it would be its introduction. In the world of Pilotwings 64, many young pilots fly the wild blue yonder, with dreams of receiving their pilot's license and aviator's badges. To fulfill your dream, you must operate 3 vehicles, a hang glider, rocket belt aka jetpack, and a gyrocopter, successfully and complete the flight tests for each class. To make it more interesting, several other vehicles will be awaiting your challenge. Use the 6 skills of different pilots, master the different vehicles, and become an ace pilot. I feel like this introduction does a good job of introducing the game for people who didn't understand the box art or title of the game, and frankly, I don't think a simple 3D flying simulator needs a deep and in-depth plotline. I do find it intriguing that the intro tells you, to make it more interesting, several other vehicles will be awaiting your challenge. I feel like this gives the player a good incentive to try out the game, and try to find unlockables. Even though I think it's useless for a game like this to have a story, that introduction isn't much of a story, which is why I give the story of Pilotwings 64 a 3 out of 5. I don't think the story was so useless it was a 2, but I don't think it was detailed enough to be a 4. Therefore, I had to split the score down the middle. For the controls, I feel like the control scheme of each main vehicle differs, but the controls of each vehicle are similar enough so that each one is enjoyable, I say that in quotations for a reason, and not too foreign from the other vehicles, which I like. The controls of the hang glider are probably the simplest. Use the control stick to steer, the Z button to take a picture, and press the A and B buttons for a flare. For the flare, I thought it'd be something cool like, an actual flare. But no, it's just you spreading your cheeks to land. This helped me slow down a lot, but this is definitely not a flare. Finally, the right bumper and C buttons change viewpoints, which only come in handy from time to time. For the rocket belt, you use the A button to use your stronger, faster jets, the B button for weaker, more accurate jets, you steer with the control stick, you can air brake and hover with the Z button, and the Z buttons are an R bumper to change the camera angles. The use of the C buttons is actually useful with the rocket belt, because it makes landing easier. The Z button is also extremely helpful, it makes for easy landings. The B button jets also come in handy for cavern runs in order to find the Everfrost Birdman and to finish the dark cavern level, because they're more controlled. Lastly, the gyrocopter's control scheme is probably the most entertaining, but also the easiest to mess up. Press the A button to go faster, the B button to slow down, the control stick to steer, the Z button to fire a missile, and the C and R buttons to move your camera angle. I think it's awesome that in a game as calm and tranquil as Pilotwings 64, you get to shoot missiles! Yeah! While missiles are fun to shoot, it's hard to aim them because of how easy it is to get blown around in your gyrocopter and lose your aim. Overall, I think the hang glider is the simplest and easiest to get the hang of, but on some later levels, completion can just get flat out annoying, due to the fact that your speed and altitude are difficult to increase, especially after swooping down to take a picture. The rocket belt is simple yet intuitive, with the hover and air brake making most rocket belt levels the easiest. But the rocket belt is also really easily blown around, so even with the help of an air brake, small areas can be very difficult to navigate. I think the gyrocopter levels gave me the best experience compared to other vehicles' levels. At first, it's mainly just fly through the rings and land, but once they introduce you to the missiles, it's a whole new world, except with that aerial. While most of these levels are just target practice, the gyrocopter actually offers you not one boss fight, but two. In a game that's supposed to be a flight simulator, this is an awesome addition. But before I finish, I do want to talk about the characters, because they do differ. Lark and Kiwi are short and lightweight. They're the easiest to use in maneuvering, but they get blown around really easily. Goose and Ibis are the tall ones and the middleweights. Their stats are pretty even, so they are all around pretty good. Hawk and Robin are stubby and the heaviest, which makes them difficult to maneuver. When I first played Pilotwings 64, Lark was the only one I used, but in later levels, one specifically being Chicken Dive, I learned there were other characters for a reason. On this level, Clark was getting too easily blown around, so when I switched to Hawk or Goose, I finished fairly quickly due to his weight. I liked all the characters, but the females seemed to be bad readers of the guys. The guys' bodies were pretty proportional, but not the girls'. And it really felt like I had to just force myself to play as the girls just for footage, and not really want to play the girls because I wanted to. The guys were just superior to them. Mainly because of the gyrocopter, I give gameplay and controls a 4 out of 5. This would have gotten a 5 out of 5 if it hadn't been for some of the annoyingly exhausting hang glider levels. Other than that, I really liked how this game worked. The music for Pilotwings 64 was composed by Dan West, and boy did he do a good job. There's not one theme from this game that I don't like. I feel like the hang gliding theme works well with its levels. The song is nice and peaceful, which can be nice to listen to when your patience is exhausted with those dadgum hang gliding levels. The rocket belt theme is nice and wacky, which is very fitting for a jetpack. I really like the gyrocopter theme because it feels very covert mission-y, and with the missiles, it just makes the gyrocopter portion of the game that much more awesome. The extra games are not at all lacking in musical quality. I really like the Cannonball theme. It's a circus kind of theme, and it works well with the hilarity of the Cannonball levels. The skydiving track seems pretty chill, but it is ridiculously catchy. It's similar to the hang gliding music and the fact that even when I got frustrated with how difficult some of the skydiving was, this song brought me back to earth. My personal favorite song in this game has to be the Jumble Hopper theme. It just has so many little snippets that remind me of games. The beginning of the song sounds like something out of Wave Race. Near the middle, it sounds like the On Guard theme ripped right out of DK64, and then the next part sounds like something out of Mario Kart Super Circuit. It's just a great song for me. Lastly, I find the Birdman song to be a very relaxing song to listen to once you've beaten the game, or really any time. It's just a great and soothing tune, really rewarding you for getting through the game. With all these great tracks, I find it very easy to give Pilotwings 64's music a 5 out of 5. This soundtrack could easily be one of my top 10 favorites. Pilotwings 64 has a pretty wide range of selection. There are 6 characters to choose from, 3 boys and 3 girls, 2 for each weight class, which the weight classes are light, medium, and heavy. I like the selection of characters, because it's not too big, and it's not too small. When you unlock the levels as you go, the main unlockables are Birdman, Cannonball, Skydiving, and Jumble Hopper. I really enjoy all of these, and feel they add a playful aspect to the game. I find the gameplay mechanics of Birdman very simple and easy to understand, which is really the epitome of this mode. Cannonball is hilarious. Purposely shooting off your character at full power as high up as possible is priceless. But I cannot say the same for skydiving. It can be difficult sometimes to get in formation, and trying to land is basically impossible. Jumbo Hopper, on the other hand, is in amazing mode. You can just jump around all you want, and there's literally no way to die. Jump against a mountain, you get back up. Bounce on water, lose 2 points, no big deal. You can also go to every world with this vehicle, so the exploration is endless. This mode is just straight up awesome, and I love it. With all these great minigames, and a little problem with skydiving, I give Selection and Unlockables a 4.5 out of 5. Mainly because these games were some of my favorite parts of this game, but dadgum skydiving had to ruin it for everyone. Multiplayer, 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 multiplayer. There are no multiplayer modes in this game, and I feel like that's a real pity. This game does work well for passing around multiplayer, but there's no set player 2. I really think this is sad, because for a release title on a new console that is the first one to commercial 4 different controller slots, there should be multiplayer. But because of this at least 2-player gameplay, I must give Pilotwings 64 a 2 out of 5. This score doesn't really correspond with the way I scored story, but there doesn't really need to be a story in a flight simulator. But I do feel like a multiplayer would have been awesome, like racing to the finish in really any mode. This multiplayer was definitely not a 0 out of 5, because there is a multiplayer aspect in Pilotwings 64, but it is not what I wanted it to be. Overall, I really enjoyed Pilotwings 64. I think it's kind of sad to think of Pilotwings 64 as a hidden gem. It's just such a great game. It very much fits in the idea of don't judge a book by its cover. I feel like Pilotwings 64 is a game that no one really took notice of when it first came out, which is kind of surprising because it was one of the 2 launch titles that released for the first 3D console, but anyway, the end grade of Pilotwings 64 is, drumroll please, 3.7 out of 5. Now that I look at it, that score seems lower than I thought this game would get, but even the best games are going to get around a 4.3 out of 4.5. If Pilotwings 64 had any kind of multiplayer mode, this game would have been a 4.1 instead of a 3.7. But there just isn't any multiplayer there. This grade may be one of the highest grades for hidden gems, and that shouldn't go unrecognized. I'm gonna miss Pilotwings 64. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, you'll probably want to check out my channel, where there's more fun stuff like this. If you want to know what I used for all this great visual editing, it's this software called Lightworks. It's a free editing software that is really strong for free editing. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, I just feel like I should nudge other content creators in the right direction in order to help them grow. Because when I wanted to start YouTube, I was flying blind on what to use, and Lightworks saved my butt. Also, it really can edit anything. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Lightworks. It's free, and the only downside is that the highest P that you can export to is 720p 60 FPS, but really that's all that the average computer can process, and 720p 30 frames per second is good enough. But yeah, it's a really good editor. Also, I use Audacity to record the lovely voice you are hearing now. It works really well with Lightworks, and it made editing this video very easy. Also, check out my Let's Play of Pilotwings 64 and my Fun with Friends episodes with my buddy Anderson. Thanks for tuning in to your Hotspot Friend 64 Gaming, and now we'll see you guys next time. Bye!